Dr. Jonathan Jenkins, thank you for joining the Effective Dose podcast. I think we have a variety of things to talk about today, and we typically don't do things too formally here, but I'd love to first have the opportunity to hear a bit more in depth about your background, just given that your mixture of both practical and more scientific clinical experience in this space warrants that people should be sitting forward on the edge of their seats, ready to listen for this conversation. So if you had to sort of encapsulate what led you up to this point, you're just have published a book now. What is your story and like what led you here?
No, I appreciate you giving me a chance to tell my story and also to connect with people who are listening. So I always love psychology. I love the bedside manner of being a doctor and helping people through challenges. I had a really good pediatrician growing up. Shout out Dr. Cooley here in Massachusetts, really bad asthma. And so not only could he heal my body physically, but he did a tremendous job of just making my parents, my brother, and me just feel at ease. Whatever we encountered with our asthma journey, it always felt like he had the right words to say. And so when I was going through college, I wanted to learn about the mind. I felt like it was a really great opportunity for me to use my problem solving skills to figure it out. And then it was always this idea of I get to encounter new people every day. I get to be able to create a sacred space with them or co-create that sacred space and really get down to the essence of human interaction, which is one person communicating with another and trying to solve problems in that person's life.
Beautiful. I love that. And what I noticed though is you didn't say anything about sports here. And one of the things I've written down that I really want to discuss today is your recent book, Mentality Wins, which is written through somewhat of a athletic lens. And I know you've done a lot of work with some high level sports organizations as well. So how does that fit into your trajectory and maybe even your current work as well?
So it started at birth, really. My parents met on a blind date to play tennis in the 70s. So my mom was this beautiful woman out of a 1970s movie. And then my dad was this black dude with an afro, but he had a bald spot here. So it looked like kind of like a tire around his head. And they met to play tennis on a date and they fell in love. And so tennis was this thing that we did as a family, both competitively, but also to bring us together and spend time together during our free time. So I took to tennis and I really loved it. But one of the challenges that I had was it was an individual sport. So every loss was on me, every mistake was on me. And all these people were looking at me while I was competing. And that attention that I was able to garner felt good when I was successful, but it always felt like I was trying to win to keep myself from feeling the emotions of losing. And that whole roller coaster was just too much. So as I became a psychologist and as I got exposed to sports psychology, it made me think back to those earlier experiences and say, damn, I really wish that I had a sports psychologist when I was in my early career playing tennis. And then when I played collegiately in college, I played lacrosse. Similarly, I had somebody who was a therapist who supported me through that experience. But I also wish I had a sports psychologist to give me those particular gems to help me through the process. And that's why myself and my co-author, Kim O'Brien, Dr. Kim O'Brien, decided to write this book so that somebody could have a playbook, a ability to have the routines and the skills presented to them, a companion, if you will, so that they can go on whatever path they're going to take on their athletic journey.
Fascinating. And correct me if I'm wrong. Are you saying that your entry point into this now long path you've traveled toward understanding the mind and utilizing it as a clinician, would you say that this started with sports? Like that's where the interest originated for you? Or was it kind of two separate things that ended up coming together?
I'd say sports and asthma, which are linked, right? Like I always wanted to play sports and run around, but I had asthma. So I had spent a lot of time by myself, which developed other habits and hobbies. So because I couldn't run around, my parents got me a lot of comic books as a kid. And so I would draw. You got a whole bunch of sketch pads. I'd try to draw my favorite superheroes because to me, they were able to do anything. And I envied them so much because there was this one thing that I really wanted to do that I couldn't do. And so take a step back from that, being able to understand just how influential my medical situation was to me as a child and for the pros and the cons and the ways that it helped me develop further. When I see somebody who's in a very entrenched, stressful situation, there's part of my response that yearns back to wanting to take care of that child that I was when I was a kid, but also being able to have some understanding of some of the sensations that they're feeling, but more so than anything, an openness to being able to go there with them, sit in that discomfort, sit in the suck, so to speak, and really be able to say, where are we when we're in this place that feels negative, that feels harmful, that feels hurtful, and how can we find our way out of it? And again, it could be a medical emergency, it could be loss, it could be grief, but it also could be a game, it could be a sport, it could be academics. And so, me not having judgments about what's important and what's not, but being able to meet the person that I'm working with where they're at and be able to understand what's important to them so I can help them accomplish their goals.
I think that's very admirable, especially given like how far you've taken it. Because I think a lot of people have these experiences at a young age, but don't necessarily use that to translate and really build something for the good of others, or multiple things for the good of others, I would add. And I want to go back to, I guess, what you're saying about learning these things in childhood. We learn our responses to adversity to some extent in childhood, and the role of sport in potentially doing this is almost like a playground of sorts to learn how to grapple with life adversity. Working with that model as a professional in this space, what is your opinion on what's missing? Because we have all these kids out there competing in sports, and we have a lot of people who are interested in leading these journeys, a lot of passionate coaches. But what do you think might be most missing from the approach if we think about long-term psychological development?
I think awareness. So, awareness of my emotions. How do I feel while I'm doing this thing that's really important to me? How do I feel based upon this really important thing impacting my life positively or negatively? I think when it comes to sports, we often think of the results. Did you win? Did you lose? Did you perform well? Did you perform poorly? Instead of thinking about how can we use sports as a avenue for self-exploration, for self-acceptance, for self-compassion, for learning resilience and determination. And I think when we flip sports on its head and think of it that way, it opens up all these different ways that we can view it, where it's not about you just need to become elite at your sport, but that we can go through this mastery process and maybe you tap out at being a athlete that is able to just make JV, but because you took it as a, I want to master the skill, I want to get connected with my teammates, I want to do the most difficult thing, psychologically and from a resilience standpoint, you might be light years ahead of your peers because you're able to manage the situation well. And when it comes to youth sports, our goal as coaches or supporters of youth sports is not to make elite athletes, it's to make elite people who are able to use sports as an avenue to accomplish some of their dreams. But if they're not going to grow into the greatest version of themselves that they possibly can be, then getting them to be able to hit a jump shot or throw a football 50 yards isn't doing them anything. It's in fact doing them a disservice because we are ignoring the areas that they need to grow and putting makeup on something that will eventually fade off and expose some of the ugliness that may come up.
I think that's very powerful. And you touched on a variety of, I guess, what I think of as psychological building blocks to success in life there. And what I've observed, both in my own journey and in working with young athletes, even talking with parents of young athletes, that one key asset that seems to be missing is the development of confidence. And I know you recently put a lot of your experience into this book with your co-author, Dr. Kim O'Brien, Mentality Wins. And in my read of this, it seems that you've basically built a framework with which we can grapple with this potential weakness and work to develop confidence from a young age. And I know it's not something that's maybe so simple as to pack into a 25-minute effective dose podcast, but if you had to give a starting point for the coaches out there, maybe even school teachers who have the opportunity to play a role in shaping development, where does that start? Like, how can we develop environments and maybe even training stimuli on the athletic side that will allow the mind and the brain to develop toward outcomes where we are highly confident individuals?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because if you think about it, when you're feeling confident about something, you don't necessarily need help to do the thing, right? So I think we're trying to get kids and athletes to feel confident, but we're also doing a poor job of helping them deal when they're not confident. The process to get to confidence, to get to a sense of resilience. And so before they get to that mountaintop, what we really want to do is instill willpower, systems that get them out of bed even when they don't want to get out of bed, that help them sprint to the line even when they don't want to sprint them to the line, that gets them to enter the World Cup in para rowing when they feel like they might not be able to do that. If we're able to give them strategies to overcome those moments when they lack motivation or confidence, they're going to be able to have confidence in their ability to overcome a situation no matter what, because they've developed not a rigid schedule, but a strategy that is bulletproof, that can be put up against challenging moments or disinterest or amotivation, but still show up every day, be accountable, be in a mental and emotional place to learn, be able to accept coaching, and be able to give your best. And so, again, I think everybody focuses on, oh, I need to scroll Instagram and find a motivational quote, or I got to find something that's going to make me confident. You're wasting your time. Find systems and strategies that allow you to do the thing, to practice, to perform, to be present, to be in the moment more times than your opponent. And if you can do that more times than your opponent, more times than not, you're going to be successful. You're going to be able to beat them. You're going to be able to overcome their defenses, and you're going to be more resilient in competition. So while they're fading in the third period or the fourth quarter, you're the one who's going to be able to sustain that energy and sustain that effort and sustain that enthusiasm.
Frequency and consistency, I love it. I've observed this in my trajectory, but yet I think it's difficult to package this for a young athlete who's trying to develop these things. So I'm curious because you almost seem to touch on the fact that it's not just about the destination. We also have to have some amount of planning to avoid detours on the road to this destination of whatever attribute we're trying to develop. And I know you have done a lot of coaching at very high levels at that, and you also have kids of your own. Do you have any certain systems that you use, or maybe even for yourself, that you could recommend, whether it be for an athletic goal, or maybe it's academic, or maybe it's something more out there in life itself?
Well, one of the metaphors that Kim and I often use in our work together and work independently with our clients is this idea of like, imagine I'm going to San Diego, right? San Diego is a beautiful place, great weather, you go surfing or whatever. So say I'm going there to go surfing with some of my best friends, right? And I'm leaving from Boston where I live. I could either A, only think about getting to that destination, or B, I can think about, man, while I'm driving to San Diego, I can hit New York. I can go to that favorite pizza place in New York. Then when I'm going through Ohio, I can check out the NFL Hall of Fame. And then I can go golf in Michigan. And then I can go to Red Rocks in Colorado and go see a cool concert. So I'm building all these things to get excited about even before I get to the destination of getting to San Diego. And one of the challenges that we have with athletes, and I won't want to say modern athletes, I think all athletes throughout time have struggled with this, is I want to get there. The only thing I'm thinking about is there. But also, how can we create these moments of excitement and also these check marks or checkpoints, like you play a video game, right? How can we create those moments where we're building towards this ultimate thing, and these check mark moments or checkpoint moments kind of renew us mentally, physically, and emotionally throughout the way? So that's something that I would encourage coaches to do, parents to do, really say, okay, yeah, we may want to win the state championship, but what are the other goals that we have throughout the course of the year? We want to beat our rival. We might want to have a shutout. We might want to have a defensively dominant performance. We might want to help our teammate become the all-time scorer in our league. All these different things that we can check off on the way to our destination so that, yeah, maybe we don't make it to the state championship, but we can reflect upon all these other things that we were successful about throughout the course of the year that allow us to have a sense of not only accomplishment, but more importantly, gratitude. So that we're more interested in climbing that mountain again next year when we have the opportunity to play again.
I think that's huge. And as you were talking, I was thinking, this alludes to gratitude, which is a seems to be like a buzzword now. Everyone's about gratitude and how to implement it, but I think there's not enough out there about systems to actually do so. Like it's this idea, yeah, you can say, I'm going to think once a day about 5 things I'm grateful for. Maybe I'll write them down. And I think that can be powerful on its own, but yet that's just one tool. So I guess what you've presented is a way that you can break down the journey such that you have like intrinsic gratitude as you travel to San Diego in this case, or maybe it's to the state championship or whatever else someone might be after. Given that we are talking a bit about youth here and about the role coaches and teachers and mentors can play, I'm curious what your take is on everything that's out there on social media, because this is now, for good or for bad, a hot topic. Mental performance, basically sharpening the ability of the mind. And the word you'll see often is hack. Like this is a hack for your focus, a hack for your confidence. Do you have thoughts on these short-term solutions, and if there's a place for these? If there is a place, like what is the place for these? Because quite honestly, like I'd like to consider myself someone who understands a bit about the brain and neuroscience and these things, but I often feel lost in it myself. So I know the teens do, and I know many parents do as well.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point because when you're searching for hacks, you have to think about why you're searching for them. Are you looking for a hack because you're looking for a shortcut? Or are you looking for a hack because you're looking for the quickest, lowest hanging fruit thing that you can do, which is more of a positive than looking for a shortcut? Are you looking for a hack because you don't want to do the work, right? So depending on the reason for the search, that will influence what you're then consuming. And so if I'm looking for things that can help improve my life, I have to take into account some of these things are going to be low hanging fruit. That's easy for me to do, easy for me to incorporate. But a lot of these things are going to require some level of frequency, repetitiveness, commitment to, in order to impact and affect the change that I want. And so if the majority of my life is searching for hacks on how to fix my life, yeah, they might fix them, but I might not understand the whys and the hows and the whens because I'm taking that shortcut in how to do it. And so when we have youth athletes and we have the most precious luxury in time of our lives, which is time, we might want to teach them the longer way, the more thorough way to do something, versus if I'm an athlete towards the end of my career, yeah, I might want the hack. I might want the shortcut because I just don't have enough time to be able to settle in and learn the things that I need to learn.
That's interesting. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but the analogy I'm thinking of as you're saying this is, all the buzz right now is using AI tools for productivity. And I'm conflicted on it myself, but I see basically some merit in what you're saying in that realm, where it's like you do need to learn the long way first. You need to learn to do the research, digest it. You need to learn to do the writing yourself, and then yeah, maybe later on you can become more efficient with the AI hack. But you need the base. Is that sort of what you're saying here in the mental performance space?
I think AI is a great example. So, if you've never started a business before and you've never made a licensing agreement or a articles of organization for the business, it might be a great idea to say, hey, ChatGPT, what does this look like? How do I do this? And so you can get some basic information and then you go about it, doing it the way that is good for your business, good for your partners, good for all the other variables in your life. So it's a great way of getting a general understanding and then you make it more specific to your situation. In the same way, anything that we suggest in the book or in conversations with our clients, we're giving them generalities. And then as we know our clients and as our clients give us feedback, we can then personalize it better because we know them better. And that personalization is what's going to help our suggestions, our routines stick more. And that's one of the cool things about the book. We encourage the reader to reflect every chapter about what we talk about it. And then we offer a skill to try where they're able to personalize it in their life. So first chapter, we talk about play. We give a whole bunch of reasons why play can be helpful for your mental health, for learning new skills, for team dynamics, et cetera, et cetera. And then at the end, we talk about, okay, how are you going to incorporate play into your strategy as an athlete or as a coach or as a parent? And then we give some suggestions and then we expect that, yeah, they're going to spend some time thinking about it, organizing it on a piece of paper so they can be proficient in applying the skill into their life. If we just make these generalizations about the importance of play, but never encourage them to, personalize it, then they're never going to do it.
I see. So it's almost built in then. This is a means by which someone can obtain a custom plan of sorts without necessarily signing up for one-to-one sessions or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think for Kim spoke about it really well and beautifully. It's hard for athletes to find sports clinicians. If you go to a directory, we're often, sandwiched in between general clinicians and clinicians who work with substance use or couples therapists. And then also, it can be cost prohibitive. A lot of sport clinician work isn't covered by insurance because it's not medically necessary. So we decided to say, hey, less than 20 bucks, you can get a pretty good primer on things that you can use as an athlete. And then if you want to go further, you can figure out if the investment further in your time and in your finances is helpful for you. But this is going to be something that's going to get you off to a good start and give you enough global information where you can pull not one, but several nuggets from the book and get started. And then you can either follow up with following us on Instagram, following other great sports clinicians on Instagram, but you'll start with a good base of knowledge so that additional knowledge will sink in better.
I love that because again, it's this idea that it can't be one size fits all. I think about the fact that everyone encounters different adversity, and moreover, in the athletic space, everyone has different constraints on what they need to achieve given their sport, their level, and all these things. So I think what you guys have provided with a model that's both broad reaching but also able to capture the nuance of each individual situation, I think it is incredibly intriguing and can help a lot of people. I'm looking at the timer. I'm like, man, this 25-minute effective dose format, sometimes it's not so easy to fulfill. But I'm gonna have to anchor to one final question, yet another difficult one, probably one we could talk about for easily an hour. But without revealing too much of the book, because I know people really do need to go read this. That's key. But you talk about this framework of focus, flow, finish, flourish. And, as I said at the start, people should be on the edge of their seat listening. And I think a question in a lot of people's minds would be like, how can I apply this in front of it could be my kids, my class, my team? What are some starting points with which a coach or a teacher can modify the structures that they use to implement pieces of this today?
So I think a lot of great sports psychology books and athlete mental skills books, they focus on what you need when you're doing the thing, your sport, playing chess, acting, music, whatever. And I think what the great thing about our book is we think about, hey, these are the strategies before competition. These are the strategies during competition. These are the strategies during really crucial moments in competition. And these are great strategies to help you flourish outside of competition. So you get the whole gambit of ways to support your athletic performance and your mental health. The other thing that's cool about the book is you can pick and choose chapters you want to read. Like, so obviously some of the stuff builds on previous chapters, but we also wanted to make it episodic. So if you're like, hey, I really want to dive into play or unstructured goals, or I really want to read the story about Jonathan struggling playing lacrosse in college, you can go do that and be able to get the nourishment you need in the moment and then revisit the book later. So it's something that will live and grow and thrive with you, and not something where you need to go from page 1 to page 200 to finish. But one of the things I was thinking too, it democratizes access to this information. Previously, a lot of sports psychology information was funneled to people who were affluent and could really afford to get their kids involved in it. So now we have not only systems in place, but a book in place where anybody or a large amount of people can access the book given the low cost point, and then they can figure out other either free or financially feasible opportunities to continue their knowledge and continue their exploration.
I really applaud the effort because I think it is too often that one, things are not accessible widely, as you've touched on, and then number two, it's easy, and I can imagine I'm not even seeing all of it. Where you're a busy clinician, you're working all these other roles, it'd be easy to let the information sit there in the academic journals and kind of tucked away from the general population. And I think bringing it to the masses, this is critical, and we need more people involved in this. Another note I'd make here at the tail end for the listeners is I see here that this is a almost marriage of performance and health, where too often these are separate domains, but yet it is the same developmental qualities that we need to instill in our youth to be both performing well and healthy from a life perspective. So I think that's yet another element of the book that people can take a lot from, even if they don't necessarily have specifically athletic goals. Given that we are at the time limit here, I do want to make sure and close with giving people the opportunity to find your work and find where you're at. Because I know you have the book, but I know you're involved in a broad array of work in the psychological performance and well-being space. So in terms of social media, the book itself, and all your other projects, where can people follow this stuff?
Sure. So you can find myself at Dr. Jonathan Jenkins at Instagram. Also have a YouTube page and a TikTok, but I'm most active on Instagram. You can find Kim O'Brien, Dr. Kimberly O'Brien, at Unlimited Resilience, both unlimitedresilience.com, also Unlimited Resilience on Instagram. My website is mental fitness psych, psych.com. If you're looking for the book's website is mentalitywins.com. It will be debuting on Amazon on January 26th. You can get an ebook, you can get the paperback, and we're currently recording the audiobook right now. So we're excited to get that to you as soon as it's finished. But feel free to shoot me an email, drop me a message. I love talking to people, and I love people who are invested in these topics: athlete mental health, athlete performance. We want the best players to be the healthiest when it matters most and they're performing at their best.
Amazing, and we'll be sure to link these things attached to the episode as well so that people have ease of access. Just want to say, Dr. Jenkins, again, thank you for the time that you've put in, not only to create this work and to make this kind of impact for so many people, but also to be here on the show today, because I know that this small amount of conversation we've been able to have, that these are real issues that people are working through on a daily basis. So this will be very helpful to very many people.
Well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. You could be talking about anything with anybody, but you're talking about how to help people live healthier lives, and that's a beautiful thing. So thank you for doing that.